All right, Rabotai, welcome. Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Parashat Toldot. The time is short, and we'll make some comments on this very difficult, most difficult parasha, maybe more than any other. She's dealing over here with the blessings that Yaakov will not say stole. The Goyim wrote a book, Jack and the Beanstalk, which is actually an anti-Semitic book. Jack is Yaakov, the beans are the lentil soup, and basically the story is how he stole the blessings from his brother. And that's the way the Goyim want to, portray. Yeah, Jack and the Beanstalk. That's Yaakov and the beans. That's the. So we went to sleep with that story when we were kids, not realizing we're getting indoctrinated that Esav's the right guy, and he got bamboozled by his younger brother. But we have to be very, very careful and remember always what the Navi says: "Et Yaakov ahavti ve'et Esav saneti." The prophet says, "Ba'ohavit Yaakov." That's it. God says, "I love Yaakov." So therefore, if you want to become the public defender of Esav, so you're on the wrong side of history. What the Bible says, I hate that man. Wow. But again, you have a lot of Jews that can't wait to criticize the Avot and find fault with the Tzaddikim, and somehow, some people can become so liberal enough where I guess you could defend Hamas and say, listen, it's only a reaction to apartheid. So what do you want? What do you expect them to do? That baby that they chopped off his head is a warrior, and therefore he's a warrior. He's a combatant because he's living in the South. So anybody who lives in the South is a combatant by default, and therefore you have to you have to react. So again, you can justify anything, but that doesn't exempt us from trying to understand the text and exactly what happened. The problem that I had this year when I reviewed this story is like this. So we get right to the end of the parasha when this starts. We're going to go to chapter 27, right in the beginning. So Yitzhak becomes old. His eyes are failing him. He calls his son Esav. And of course, Esav is always ready to serve his father. That much we have to give him credit. He did have kibud av. He says, "Lo yadati yomoti," and therefore go take all your equipment and go out to the field and provide for me some trappings, and then I'll bless you. Of course, Rivka hears this, and she says, "Impossible." And she calls Yaakov and says, "Listen, I hear what's going on, and this is not good, and therefore you have to go in, and you'll have to disguise yourself because your father thinks Esav is the worthy one. And you have to put the goat skins on, and you're going to have to act in a deceptive manner." So, Yaakov Abinu, although he's a Tam, and Yaakov Ish Tam, do not fall for that misinterpretation when they say Yaakov Ish Tam, he was simple. He was very complex, to be honest with you. Yaakov Abinu was not simple. Tam means he's not a trickster, he's not a prankster, he's not a sketch artist. He goes straight, he's wholesome, he does things honestly, he's not involved in any chicanery and any, guise, or guile, or, things like that, of that nature. Fine, but nonetheless, he listens to his mother, and he goes in, and Yitzhak is a little confused at the beginning in Pasuk Chabet, Akol Kol Yaakov, Yadayim Yedei Esav. You sound like Yaakov, you feel like Esav, he feels him, and he says, all right, he gives him the beracha. Smells his garments. The Gemara says actually the fragrance of Gan Eden came in, and he gave him the unbelievable blessing, V'yiten lecha Elohim, Pasuk 28. Although in third grade, we learned the first rule in writing sentences is that you never start a sentence with "and." That's an automatic, couple of points off on your grade. So here, maybe the Torah doesn't know that rule, but the Torah starts off, or maybe Yitzhak didn't know the rule, V'yiten lecha, and God should give you. What do you mean and? It should say, Yiten lecha. So what is the Vav doing over there? And that Vav as we'll soon see, turns out to be the most critical letter in the entire parasha. Although you could just miss it. We say it every Saturday night. You want to read V'yiten Lecha? But what's the Vav? Yiten Lecha. This is the first time he's getting the blessing. We hear it at every wedding. V'yiten Lecha. So we get so used to it that we assume the Vav belongs there. But grammatically, you don't start a pasuk with a Vav. Anyway, he gets an incredible blessing. Whatever they are, they're amazing blessings. And then right when it's done, pasuk lamed, of course, he's on the way out. Who's walking in? The revolving door. Esav achiv ba mitzedo. And he also made mat'amim, and he tells his father, get up, Dad, eat, bless me. So he said, what are you talking about? I just blessed you. Who are you? What are you talking about? I'm Esav. You're Esav? Who is that? Oh, and all of a sudden the light goes on in Esav's head. I got bamboozled over here. Something just happened. Now I know what Yaakov was doing. He was walking out because he just took the blessing. Now Yitzchak Avinu, it says, who was the one that just came in? And he figures it out right away. Interesting pasuk lamed gimel. People miss this. That means now Yitzchak realizes what happened. He realized that he blessed Yaakov. So many people think where Yitzchak Avinu says, listen, I gave it already. All right, listen. You know what? Consolation prize, Esav, we'll give you some runners-up blessing. That's not what happened here. That's not what happened. The pasuk says in 33, Gam Baruch Yeh. Now, Gam Baruch Yeh is not saying you will also be blessed. What Yitzchak is saying is, it stands, meaning I did the right thing. And at this point, Yitzchak Avinu realizes that he was, fooled all these years, and he says, "Wow, that was a close call." But Yaakov, who got the blessings, there's no backsies on this one, and I'm doubling down. So he tells Esav, not that he has any regret, he actually tells Esav, what I did is done. Gam Baruch Yeh. It's confirmed. I'm not backing out. That's a very important to understand how to learn this pasuk, because you could read it. You too will get a blessing. No, you too will get something else, but you're not getting the blessing of the family of Abraham. You're going to get an olam hazeh blessing, a worldly blessing, which is not worth too much. But the one that's getting the family, legacy and the heirloom and the blessing of Abraham, Gam Baruch Yeh, it stands. And Esav goes berserk. In pasuk lamed dalet, kishmoa Esav et divrei aviv. Oh, vayitzak se'aka gedola umara ad meod. That's you cannot put enough adjectives on this crying. It's a se'aka, it's a gedola, it's mara, it's ad, it's meod, it's a lot. All right. Sounds like Esav is not too happy. That's the feeling I'm getting from these words. A great se'aka, bitter se'aka, ad me'od. And he tells his father, bless me. Now, if you're Yitzhak, you see now a World War III starting to percolate here. Esav's a brute. Esav's a tough guy. And whether Yitzhak knew that Esav is a good guy or not, that we could debate. But he surely knew that Yaakov was a tzaddik. Nobody ever said that he didn't know who Yaakov was. He knows Yaakov is the tzaddik. He just thinks Esav is the bechor and deserves. But nobody's ever questions that he missed the brothers and thought that Yaakov is the bad guy. Haz v'shalom. So he knows now that Yaakov's in trouble. Because Esav is capable of doing what he's going to do to him. He's going to chase him out of the house, 400 soldiers next week. There's going to be a major, it's going to cause Yaakov to become a fugitive, and Esav's having a bounty on Yaakov's head. So if you're a father, at this point, what are you supposed to do? De-escalate. De-escalate. Nah, listen, he didn't know. He was blessing for you. The father obviously has to try to simmer things down. The last thing a father is going to do in this case is to take a log and throw it into the fire and stir up some trouble. Okay, well, listen to what Yitzhak tells Esav. Vayomer ba achicha b'mirma vayikach birkatecha. Your brother came with mirma. Now, what is mirma? Mirma means with trickery, with cunning intelligence. Wow. Now, if Yitzhak was trying to make things better, I mean that's not the diplomacy that's going to cause Esav to say, "Oh, it was cunning intelligence that he was using over here," meaning he tricked me. Now I understand. Thanks for telling me that. It was the mirma over here. Yeah, it was only something. It was just a case of mirma. Oh, that's it. I understand that. I'm a rational guy. So unsurprisingly, Esav is going to even become more enraged by what Yitzhak Avinu was doing, and it'll have an opposite effect on what we're trying to accomplish over here. Fine. So that's my first question: was what is Yitzhak mean when he says "Ba achicha b'mirma"? What is he saying? Furthermore, anyway, he gives him some sort of blessing, whatever he tells him. Well, I'll get to the blessing in a minute. That's in Lamed Zayin. He tells Esav, you get this, you get that, get some other stuff, piece of real estate somewhere. And then, if you go to Pasuk Mem Aleph, now, you could miss this also, but you got to pay attention to the words. Let's go slow. Help me. Vayistom Esav et Yaakov, which means what? He harbors resentment. Esav is the one that's harboring resentment against Yaakov. Why? Ala beracha asher beracho abiv. Okay, I wouldn't have written it like that. It sounds like his resentment is on the beracha. No, he's not angry at the beracha. No, he's angry at the way Yaakov Abinu tricked them to get the beracha. Is he angry at the beracha? Not angry at the beracha. He wanted the beracha. The beracha actually is something that Esav wanted. He just cried a bitter cry. He's not angry about the beracha that his father gave. He's more angry about the fact that Yaakov took it. If I was writing the post, I would say, "Vayistom Esav et Yaakov al ha-mirma." Right? Al ha-mirma. What's bothering Esav over here? You tricked me. You stole. You took something. Jack of the Beanstalk. You stole my blessing. But he doesn't say anything about that. He's upset about the beracha that his father blessed him.
Does he know at this point the bracha that Yaakov got?
Yes. No. He knows what the beracha is. It seems he got the briefing, and he's upset about the beracha. But he's not upset about the beracha per se. He's upset about the way he snatched the beracha away from him. That's just the point.
There's no acknowledgement that he made a deal.
That's going to happen later on. That's going to happen later on with the angel of Esav and Yaakov. They're going to settle that up. Yeah, I have the birthright. I want to make something very clear over here, Rabotai. There is a midrash that does say that Yaakov in this episode was guilty of something, and I cannot, to deny that, and there would be ramifications in the future. But I'm going to use this midrash to show you that this is the only condemnation that the midrash has in the whole story. Nothing else. And that is, unintentionally, Yaakov Abinu caused Esav to scream out a bitter cry. That was painful. And God judges the tzaddikim with a fine-tooth comb. Even though Yaakov didn't intend it, it wasn't malicious. He didn't wake up in the morning and say, how can I get my brother to cry, Sa'aka Gedolah Umara, so it wasn't premeditated, Sa'aka Gedolah Umara. It's something that happened as an unintended consequence, but the Midrash writes, but since the tzaddik is the tzaddik, and the tzaddik really has to be so careful not to cause anybody pain and suffering, and you cause your brother to, make a sigh of woe. So therefore, those words would repeat themselves in Jewish history at another time, in the time of Megillat Esther. So when Esav's great-great-grandson Haman comes on the scene, and he makes a decree, Lahashmid, Laharog, Ulabed et Kol HaYehudim, and Mordechai, who's the great-great-grandson of Yaakov, when he hears the decree, what does it say? Vayitzak, Mordechai, Tza'aka, Gedola, Umara. And that's what God said. You see, now we're even. But that's it. And we call that, and that's a misdemeanor. They get Yaakov on. But see, this is not a federal crime of stealing anything. But see, if God's looking to get Yaakov on, write him a summons, write the summons.
The reaction to
Right, okay, we got you. In basketball, they call it a technical foul. Okay, we got you on a minor infraction. That's like the guy just wants you to write your ticket, so he has to find something to write your ticket. Okay, the cause of crime or crime committed, undue screaming to Esav. Now, by the way, Esav's an Rasha, by the way. Esav's a murderer. He's a deceptive guy. He's a ganav. I have no problem. Let him scream once in his life in pain. He caused so much pain to other people. You're right. He probably deserves that Sa'aka Gedolah Mara, but the fact that it came through Yaakov, so Borei Olam slaps Yaakov on the wrist. The reason why I'm bringing you that midrash, it's a very important midrash. That shows you, outside of that, Yaakov does nothing wrong here. The midrash is looking to punish Yaakov. The only thing they can get him on is an unintended consequence, and it gets paid back many years later. A cry, eye for an eye. This is a cry for a cry. This is a tza'aka for a tza'aka. So Mordechai's tza'aka offsets the tza'aka gedolah umara of Esav. Now they take it off his record. So now Yaakov's record becomes clean again. And the police department, they cross that off the record, and therefore he's nothing to nothing to pay for anymore. So that was the full extent of of his misdeed. Okay, now let's begin the parasha. So let's begin the parasha when Rivka comes along and says, these are big points. When Rivka comes along to Yaakov Abinu and says in Pasuk Tet, Lechna el atzon, go to the tzon. And the simple explanation is, go to the tzon and take the sheep in order to bring to your father. But the Midrash says, I have a copy of the Midrash here, Lech v'kadem et ha'umah shemeshulal latzon. Go and precede the people that are compared to the sheep. Which means, when Rivka is saying to Yaakov, go take sheep, she doesn't only mean go take sheep to slaughter them, to give it to your father to eat, but go do something that the children that you're going to have that are also compared to sheep are going to have to do as well. Precede them by doing this. They're going to have to do what you're doing one day also, and therefore precede them by doing what you're doing. I say again, the lashon of the midrash is lech v'kadem et ha'umah. Go and do something like a maaseh avot siman banim. Do something as a mother of Klal Yisrael that eventually your children will have to do as well one day. What is this referring to? So there was a great rabbi called Rabbi. This midrash, I'll tell you exactly where it is. It is in on this pasuk in Midrash Rabbah. On this pasuk in Midrash Rabbah. 61:14. Natan, 61:14. So, what is being said over here? So there's a great rabbi called Rabbi Solomon Breuer. We've quoted him in previous shiurim. Solomon Breuer was the top student of Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch. Later he becomes his son-in-law. Anybody wants to see what this rabbi looked like, this is Rabbi Solomon Breuer. Looks like his father-in-law, Rabbi Hirsch, a little. He becomes the chief rabbi after Rabbi Hirsch in Frankfurt, and he becomes a very, very pivotal scholar. In his time, he was dealing with the Reform and all these guys that were coming to revise Judaism, and he was a staunch protester and bearer of the faith of authentic Orthodox Judaism. So recently they printed some of his derashot that he made during those years, and this is a new book. It's hot off the press, the ink is still wet. These are the old derashot that he made in the 1800s in Germany. So he comes along and he says, what does that midrash mean when it says, go proceed and do something that your children that are compared to sheep are going to have to do? So he says like this. There's a mistake that people make in thinking that there's certain traits that are good traits and certain traits that are bad traits. And the good traits you should always embrace, and the bad traits you should always keep away from. He said that's not true. Every single midah can be good and could be bad. It just depends on when you use it. Therefore, there's nothing exclusively good and there's nothing really exclusively bad that you can categorize them. You have to know how and when. So a knife, could you say a knife is exclusively bad? No, of course. I mean, if you're stabbing somebody, then I guess it's bad. But if you're smearing butter on a bagel, then it's good. Or if you're doing a brit milah with it, then you're doing a mitzvah. So therefore, it all depends exactly how you use the weapon. Similarly, when it comes to, let's say, pride versus humility. So, of course, our knee-jerk reaction would always be, pride is terrible, ga'ava, and humility is good. Well, it depends. Sometimes humility is not called for when you have to stand up and protest, something that's wrong. Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, had to put his humility on the side when it came to fighting against Korah. And if he would have said, who am I to fight against Korah? And then his humility would have basically given power to Korah to usurp the whole Torah. So therefore he had to use a little, confidence, or a little ga'ava, the kedusha. And therefore, once he's finished with it, put it back in the box. So, and it's like that with everything.
Even anger?
Everything. Even, of course, Maimonides says, even anger, facial anger for your children. If your children don't see they get angry. You get angry at them when they cross the street on a red light. So therefore, they'll be they won't be deterred to do it again. So the Rambam says you have to show an angry face to your children sometimes, so they know that upsets you. And every midah, you use it and you put it back in the box. That's why it says in Kriyat Shema, "Ve'ahavtat Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha." B'chol levavecha. It doesn't say b'chol libecha. Libecha is your heart. Levavecha is your hearts. So the Zohar HaKadosh says, what do you mean your hearts? She brings that as well. You have two ventricles in your heart. And you should serve God with both ventricles. The Yetzer Tov is on the right ventricle and the Yetzer Hara is on the left ventricle. So the rabbis ask, serve God with the Yetzer Hara? I understand that you have to love God with the Yetzer Tov, with the right ventricle, but how do you serve God? So the simple explanation is by suppressing the Yetzer Hara. That's how you love God. But according to Rabbi Breuer, no. The way you love God is using some of his tactics, but harness it and direct it for the service of God. So therefore, the desire is ta'ava. We would say, desire is a terrible thing. Addiction is is desire. You're right. But if you don't have desire, you won't get married. And if you don't have desire, you won't be able to have kids. So you need to have a little desire just in order to serve God correctly. And it's like that with every single midah. Jealousy. Of course, jealousy is terrible. But if a person is envious of somebody else's religious accomplishments, and therefore he says, "Wow, he goes to class. I gotta be at least as loyal as he," and therefore that jealousy or envy motivates you to something good. But then you put it back in the box. So he says, don't make the mistake to think that deception and trickery and slyness and cunning intelligence is something that is exclusively wrong. It's not. You have to know when to use it. As a matter of fact, Bnei Yisrael are compared to a sheep that lives among 70 wolves. And if anybody has a doubt, go to the United Nations anytime they're in session, and you'll see the poor Israeli ambassador sitting there, and you got the 70 wolves around them, and they're salivating, and everybody from, the superpowers to the president of the Congo gets up and just, has what to say about the poor sheep. And they have claims against the poor sheep. And I don't think there was a session in the United Nations, which we should put in parentheses, United Nations against Israel, that should be in parentheses, that did not make a resolution against Israel. No matter what's happening, there's always something they could find wrong about the poor sheep. And that's why the sheep, throughout our long exile, had to resort to, being sly, how to exist with the goyim. Because the only way you deal with foxes and wolves, you got to be clever with them. And therefore, Bnei Yisrael, throughout their history, always has to outfox and outsmart and go behind the scenes and speak to the government and bribe. And then we have to act in a sly way because it's the only way we'll be able to survive the 70 foxes. So what Rivka is telling Yaakov is, listen, what you're going to do today is going to set a precedence to where we have to deal with Esav in the future generations. He says, go to the sheep, which means make a precedent in how you deal with Esav. You can't deal with Esav, the anti-Semite, straight. You can't deal with him like you deal with a normal person with facts and figures. They hate you. So you got to be clever and you have to be sly. So what you're going to do today with Esav will become the operating, the mode of operation, how the Jewish people have to act in the future when it comes to anti-Semitism. All other nations of the world don't need to resort to that. But when you're the underdog, so you have to figure out all different, which means when a regular terrorist comes and, I'll say it simply, when Russia invades Ukraine, they don't have to explain too much. Putin doesn't have to tell anybody what he's doing. He doesn't have to explain it. He doesn't have to have a pro cam on his head to show every single thing he does and bring reporters in to show them that, who cares? He can get away with it. But when a Jew does something, so you got to prove it, and you've got to have all these clever tactics. You got to see the video and let them see it. You don't believe me? Want me to make up that what they took a baby's head and they killed it? I don't know if it happened. Oh, we're going to make it up that they raped. That's what you say. Why would you make this up? Hamas is saying it. Well, we can't trust them either. So we don't know if they're doing it. And wow. So we're the only nation that actually has to bring reporters in with video so they see it with their own eyes. And then you have to hope that they don't walk out saying, well, it was doctored and it's... thank God they didn't. But my point is, only we have to do these things. So we have to be clever. Why any rogue guy that speaks to the United Nations gets up there and speaks? The only guy that's going up there with charts and oak tags and why? What are you doing? It's not show and tell. Only guy he comes with an easel and got to show them because you got to be sly with these guys. Because you can't just get up and say, "Oh, Iran is a threat." You got to show them the picture. We were there. Here it is. Here's the bomb. Here's the guy. We were there. We took a picture when he was sleeping. This is what he was thinking. So nobody has to resort to these guys' crazy tactics. Why? That's what we have to do. And everybody in the United States, well, these guys are clever. These Jews are clever. What do you know? The easel and the exhibit number 1, exhibit number 2. Putin doesn't got to say nothing. Nobody asks Putin, hey, you're killing innocent people. Whatever he says, they take for granted. But whatever we say, it's got to be backed up by, corroborated by different sources throughout. We have to bring the ayot for everything. That's the cleverness, the Bnei Yisrael would have. And that would start with this story over here. So he says, don't think that what Yaakov is doing to Esav is considered a compromise of values. That's the way you deal with Esav. You can't deal with him straight. If you're going to go straight, he'll run you around in circles. So the only way you deal with deception is you got to play his game. You got to give him a taste of his medicine. When you go crooked, then already you catch the the crook off guard because he doesn't think you're going to be crooked. So he takes advantage of your honesty. So therefore, you have to go like the David HaMelech in Ikesh Tet Akash. So that's how sheep fight wolves, and that's incidentally when. Okay, fine. There's more to say on that, but the time is short. We have to go to the yeshiva. But we continue. At this point now, Rabbi Hirsch writes something unbelievable. So what's the plan here? The plan is going with the goat skins, and when you're going with the goat skins, you'll fool your father. Now the goal is not to fool your father. Rabbi Hirsch says the goal is to show Yitzhak that he can get fooled. It's a big difference. That's right. Not trying to fool the old man. Why you want to fool your father? But you have to show him, Yitzhak, you can get fooled. And if you can get fooled in this little trick of a masquerade, guy put on some goat skins, and you thought it was Esav, so guess what? Esav that was doing this for 63 years. It wasn't a 2-minute masquerade party where you made a mistake. This guy's doing it for 63 years. So this is Rivka's way, in a very sensitive way, without bawling her husband out, to say, listen, you're not impervious to getting tricked. And this is an experiment over here that you see that you were able to get fooled. Again, I say Rabbi Hirsch's words. Not trying to trick Yitzhak, but to show Yitzhak that he can get tricked. And if he can get tricked with this little scheme, so that wakes up Yitzhak and says, oh, no. Now everything, now you call a timeout. You get 3 timeouts, you call a timeout right there. Hold it. What has been going on the past 63 years? Could be all these years, Esav, when he was asking me all these religiously charged questions, maybe that was part of the rules, and maybe he really isn't what it is. That's what gets him to think. And right away he starts to smell the Gan Eden, and he says, oh, okay, fine. The tzaddik is able to calibrate quickly what went on. So right away he says, Gam Baruch Yeh. Okay, I made a mistake. This is the good guy. That's the bit. But now watch. Yitzhak Avinu says, wow. He says, wow. He says, how critical was this situation? I know my son Yaakov, straight as an arrow. Man, he can't lie. If you paid him $1 million, he's not capable. He's saying, what did this come to? That Yaakov Avinu, the only way to stop me, it had to come that even the straightest, honest, Yashar man had to resort to deception. I mean, if that had to happen, that means all else was going to be destroyed. That means what woke up Yitzhak Avinu? The fact that Yaakov, it means SOS, that's it. The boat was sinking. I mean, if Yaakov has to deceive, that means we were at the point almost of, so therefore he tells Esav, you know how I am certain that I made a mistake all these years? Wow. Your brother, the honest guy, he resorted to mirmah. That's so against his nature. That's so, if he has to resort to mirmah, which is so, I'm sure Rivka had to twist his arm 33 times to get him to do this. If he had to resort, so he's explaining to Esav, not trying to make it more fuel to the fire. He's like, listen, I know I've been fooled. The proof of the pudding is if Yaakov had to resort to that trick, and something's going on over here. That means we reached the point of no return. The way he says it over here is, he says that he had to resort to mirmah, and he quotes a midrash that after Yitzhak tells him this, what's Esav's reaction? It's great that the midrash tells us all the behind the scenes stuff that Torah doesn't tell you. There was a reaction to this. He says, Esav talking, Ma asali hatam hazeh. He says, look what this tam did to me. Now, I always understood that midrash to mean, look at that, I got duped by a tam. But no, what he's saying is, because he was a tam all those years, the mirma made an effect. Look what the tam did. 63 years minus a day, he's a tam. So the one day when he acts the mirma, it's going to make an effect. So he says, Eli Mansour, because if Yaakov was like me, that was a trickster and a sketch artist and a prankster, all right, so therefore, when he fools around, you don't take it so seriously. Well, you say, wow, that's shocking. It's only shocking because he was a tam his whole life. So that's why Esav's reaction is, look what this tam did to me. His tamut make his mirma believable.
Out of character.
Out of character. Okay, now let's continue. It's a shame. I really got to get to the yeshiva, but I could leave by 8:50. Otherwise, they don't pay me. I need the money. Listen, I need the money. They got 3 committee guys standing outside looking at the watch. $50 is $50, boys. Listen. Anyway. So this is amazing. So now let's go to the blessings. This part, the Midrash comes along and says, "V'yiten lecha Elohim mital hashamayim." So what happens? The Midrash says, and he quotes it. V'yiten lecha. So the v'yiten, Rashi says, yiten v'yazor v'yiten. Which means it should be a continuous blessing. It shouldn't be just a one-time blessing. V'yiten. Yiten v'yasov v'yiten. But the Midrash says like this. Yiten lecha et ha-beracha v'yiten lecha et kevushehon. May he give you the blessings and also the tools necessary for it. So yiten, that's the beracha. But v'yiten, he should also give you the wherewithal to be deserving of the blessing. Hold it. That means these were not free blessings. Says the Midrash, what's the wherewithal? So the Midrash says, v'yiten lecha Elohim mital hashamayim zu mikra. That's mikra that came from shamayim. That's Torah shebichtav. U'mishmaneh ha'aretz, mishmaneh milashon mishnah. That's the study of Mishnah. Ve'rov dagan ve'tiros zu gemara. So what Yaakov is being told by his father is, you do ABC, kivushehon, the tools, v'yiten, and I will give you. The vav represents the vav of condition. And I will give you. Hold it. But you got to do this first. And then I will give you. So the and is the whole key there. These blessings were here conditional on what? But why are we not shocked at this concept? The whole Torah is filled with it. You do the mitzvot, and you get the goods. You don't do it, you get shambled. That's what was being said here. Now guess what? And here's the key. When Esav hears this, he don't want that beracha. I promise you, Esav does not want to learn Gemara and learn Mishnah and come to class. Esav's an animal. He wants liberation. He wants freedom. He just wants to have a good time. Yeah? So when he hears these berachot, he's screaming and he's crying, but it's a hoax. It's a hoax. This would become the typical anti-Semitism where they make it, he took it, he's crying to the CNN reporter, he took my blessing. You don't really care about the blessing. You care, and I'll prove you that he doesn't care about the blessing. When God gave him a second chance when we got the Torah, he went to Esav first. And what did Esav say? I'm out. You're still out? I'm still out. But you were crying to CNN when they took the berakah from you. They took my berakah. Crocodile tears. It's a straw hat. It's a straw man. Those tears. It's the same thing today. When they come along and they're crying, they took our land, it's all lies. And my brother's a cheater. It takes one to know one. This guy, it's Mamash Hamas. This guy kills for a living cheats for a living, steals for a living, is a wise guy for a living. And what does he tell the Al Jazeera guy? The Israeli cheater, he liar, he killer. What are you doing? That's you. And what does the guy say? Yeah, you're right. He's killing babies in the hospital, and everything that he did, he projects. That's Esav. That crying of Esav was such a fake cry. It's a fake cry. You know what I mean? Oh, ask Esav privately. You really wanted that blessing? You have to study Gemara. Oh, I didn't know. The Vav. That shocked me. That Vav. I'm not into that Vav. I'm into Yitin. That Vav, that's a game changer. I don't want that Vav. And by the way, he'll get blessings. What blessings will he get? The blessings that he's going to get is no Vav, by the way. He's just going to get good stuff. But what is he going to get? And there's the killer. What he says is, okay, so look at the pasuk, look at Lametet. Hine mishmanei haaretz. No Vav. Mishmanei haaretz. Mital hashamayim. We'll give you good stuff also. Harbecha tihyeh. And you'll live by your sword. But then, v'tahicha ta'avod. But you work for your brother. Your brother, Yaakov, is on top. That's the beracha he got. So he didn't have to learn Torah. He doesn't got to perform mitzvot. His berachot are only conditional on one item. Yaakov, you work for him. Next pasuk. Vayistom Esav et Yaakov ala beracha asher beracho aviv. He resents not the beracha that Yaakov got. He resents the beracha that he got. You understand? We're learning the pasuk. Vayistom Esav et Yaakov ala beracha asher beracho aviv. Meaning the blessing that he blessed Esav. He don't want Yaakov's blessing. Blessing, the worst blessing for.
If you see the Rashi, exactly.
Exactly. That's what he was worried. He said, I don't care. I don't feel too bad about Yaakov's blessing. I feel bad about my blessing because I got to be under this guy. So therefore, but when he cries in public, he cries, he stole it from me. It says he cried 3 tears, the Midrash says. One from his right eye, one from his left eye, and 1 tear that he kept inside of him. The right eye, he stole my birthright. And the left eye, he stole my blessing. But those are crocodile tears. It's a fake. You don't care about any of that stuff because you have to be religious. And you proved it 1,000 times. But for the optics, for the New York Times, yeah, poor Esav, look at the guy, duped by the Jew, duped by the brother. But it says there's 1 tear that he kept inside. And it is that tear that has caused the Jewish people the most crying from our standpoint. The tear that he didn't let out. What does that mean, says Rabbi Broya? He says, you know what the most painful tear of Esav is? Is the fact that he knows that the Jewish people are right and that he's wrong. That's the tear that he doesn't let anybody know. That's the tear that which is he knows the Jewish people are not ganavim and they're not rotzchim. That he has to say that to the newspapers because he knows the newspapers will buy it because they want to believe it. He said, but deep down in his heart, Esav knows I'm the gangster and they're the good guys. They're the baishanim. That's the tear that he has to suppress. But he feels that pain. And that's where the resentment of anti-Semitism comes, says Rabbi Broya, that they really know. So when the guys get up and they say, the Jew, when they go home at night and they look in the mirror, they know in the heart of hearts that everything they're saying is sheker. And it's only a matter of time how long the sheker is going to be able to be bought. There's going to come a time where the Mashiach will come and then they themselves are going to get up and say, not only Hashem, the Jewish people are correct. And all we were doing over here, we knew that they were the right ones, but we knew we can get away with it. Esav knows he can get away with those 2 tears that are visible from his eyes. But it's the tear that he suppresses, that's where all the animosity comes from. And that's why, and I'll conclude, the Midrash comes along and says, regarding the tears, Gimel dema'ot horid Esav, ahat mimino, ve'ahat mismolo, ve'ahat nistalka betoch eno. And it's the one that remains suppressed in his eye. Ve'hi echalatam lechem dem'a, v'tashkemu b'dma'ot shalish. That caused the Jewish people to cry throughout the generations. The real hatred of Esav is not what he says. but what he knows, and that really causes him to have animosity. We'll stop over here. America, Europe. Okay, oh boy.